Hello, it is a privilege to be reading the book titled Soulmate: How to Attract the Right Partner for Marriage, written by Osas-Daniel, a series on the power of your desires, read by Osas-Daniel. Introduction. The issue of relationships and marriage is one of the most popular subjects, yet very sensitive. There are so many misconceptions about this vital issue. In this book, I will be sharing my personal experience in this subject, and I hope that you will learn one or more lessons that will help you make the best of this adventure, that others will also be able to learn from you. In life, generally, we always have two options to choose from, either to be an example or a warning. And the choice is what we all have equal opportunity to make. The options are few, and this is not the making of a man, but of God. In Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, God called man to choose from only two options: blessing or cursing, and life and death. So, the decision is here for you to make. When I was growing up, I made a decision never to teach people from the angle of regret or to be a warning, but from the point of being a blessing. For example, women who lost their virginity before marriage, except for those who fell victim to rape, will only give advice and teach others from the angle of being a warning. But the one who kept herself for her husband till their wedding night will stand tall and shoulder squared when she has the privilege of teaching others. She will teach from the angle of being an example, and she will end by saying, "If I could do it, you too can." So, dear friend, from this point of view, I will share my experience from a sincere heart of how I attracted my soulmate. And for 5 years of marriage, I can only say that I attracted the right person in marriage. Note that I used the word attracted for a reason. Who you eventually marry is your choice and your responsibility alone. Do not wait for the right person to find you. Instead, become the right person and you will attract the right person. In this book, I will be showing you the steps that you can take, the things you can do, and the things you need to stop doing in order for you to attract the right person. As I did a few years ago, I will make this simple and interesting so you can get to the end of the book. The audio version of this book is actually what I'm doing now to help you internalize the concept that will be shared here by listening to it as often as possible until you can act automatically without thinking about it. So, let's get started. Chapter 1: The Right Partner. When I was about 19 years old, I began to birth a desire for the kind of woman I would like to get married to when the time comes. And one of the many things I wanted in the woman, which I told God, was that I would love to get married to a woman that every man would wish they got married to. Now, while I advocate that things should be written down when it comes to setting goals, to be honest, there are things that you can never forget when you sincerely want, even if you don't write them down. This was exactly what happened to me in this regard. Many people write down things that are outside their mind, which is why many set goals at the beginning of the year, and 1 month into the year, they can't even remember where they kept the book or what they wrote down. When it comes to defining the right marriage partner, it is more of the mind than it is of the head. A strong desire for what is in your mind for the kind of person you want is vital. Remember the story of the blind man in the Bible when Jesus asked him in Mark chapter 10 verse 51, "What wilt thou that I do unto you?" King James Version. The man was not looking for where he wrote it, but it came straight from his mind. The same was seen in the account of King Solomon in 1 Kings chapter 3 verse 5, when God asked him what he wanted. Solomon didn't have the time to wake up from his dream, to go in search of his journal, to see what he had written down. But straight up, Solomon knew what he wanted. The first question you will need to answer is, what is your idea of the right partner? Until you define your right partner, you will either remain single or marry any person that comes your way. One of the primary reasons for the troubles that many experience in marriage is because they didn't know the kind of partner they wanted in marriage. My desire to marry a woman that every man would wish they got married to was just a summary of my detailed specifications of the kind of woman I wanted in a marriage. I was particular to the point of even the type of features I wanted in her physically. While I will not advocate that we should focus our attention on the person's physical qualities, I will always remind you that as humans, our eyes must first accept and appreciate a meal before we consider eating it. Please understand that this is not being worldly. In defining who your right partner is, you can only partially rule out the person's physical qualities. Most importantly, the values of the person must be your priority. When I said I needed a partner to who every man wished they got married to, I was not referring to the most beautiful lady in the universe in terms of physical beauty, but in terms of character. My reason for laying more emphasis on character is the understanding that what we see physically, the outward appearance, is temporal and subject to change. Still, a person's virtue and character defines who the person is. This is very obvious with the many unsuccessful marriages we see everywhere. Physical beauty may initiate an attraction but can never sustain it. Therefore, the first step to attracting the right marriage partner is to be specific in all areas of what you want in your partner. Another aspect that must be noted while defining the right partner you want is avoiding any form of limitations. Many people make choices based on their current reality. For instance, someone may think that because they feel physically, financially, or socially disadvantaged, they may only look for someone who is within their level. We may even be doing this because of what the people around us will say, and you will hear them say things like, "Water knows its level." Statements of such limits us and makes us choose lower than we could ever get. You may have been told not to bite more than you can chew. Still, I am here to tell you that when it comes to choosing what you truly want, you should go for what resonates deeply with your inner being and not what people think or say you should settle for, because settling for less than what you aimed at is a proof that you believe that you are not worth the best. Your specification for a life partner can be brought to you through your desire. I read a statement recently from The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill that corroborated the efficacy and validity of this fact. He said, "I once knew an impoverished girl who had a burning desire for a wealthy husband, and she finally got him, but not without having transformed that desire into the development of a beautiful personality, which in turn attracted the desired husband." Do you desire something less when you can get something much better? Why should you settle for half bread when you are not allergic to pizza or shawarma? In defining the kind of partner you want, desire the best and don't be scared of going for it. In the next chapter, we shall consider why some people end up with the wrong people in their marriage. Chapter 2: Why some people marry the wrong partner. A story shared by Florence Coven-Sheen in her book titled The Game of Life and How to Play It. She said a woman said, "I was unhappy at home. I disliked my mother, who was critical and authoritative. So I ran away from home and was married. But I married my mother, for my husband was like my mother, and I faced the same situation again." I want to state here that God is too just, and life is highly orchestrated to ensure that no one is given what they didn't bargain for. While it may look to many on the outward that they married the wrong person, That may not be the case if we can see what the person already has settled in his mind. You see, when we read the book of Job, if we stop at just chapter 1, we may be forced to conclude that the devil and God conspired against Job. And here comes the saying, bad things also happen to good people. But in the concluding part of chapter 3, you will find out that it was Job who attracted what happened to him. Job had nursed the fear of such challenges to him. If you know how the mind works, you will understand that our mind attracts to us whatever it is we allow to settle down in our subconscious mind. The story of the woman above reveals that she was attracted to the kind of partner she eventually married. One of the reasons why many people get married to the wrong partners is due to the subconscious programming they had growing up. Many unknowingly harbor the kind of relationship they grew up seeing in their environment. Many people do not like the type of marriage they saw their parents or those they grew up having. They grow up not wanting such in their life, but because they do not know what to do about it, they end up with the exact kind of relationship they didn't want to experience. Many only wish away what they don't want to experience in life, but wishes alone cannot change the subconscious programming. Another reason why people marry the wrong person is that they do not believe that the right person exists. And as it is always said, if you believe you can, you are right. And if you believe you can't, you are also right. Our lives will always go in the direction of what we believe. And we should understand that the proof of what you believe is not just in your affirmation, but in your actions. While it starts in the mind, if it remains a mental thing alone, it will not have much effect on you. Still, the body has been designed to follow the direction of our thoughts. And by this, people begin to act unconsciously in the order of what they believe. While I decided on the kind of partner I would love to get married to, I didn't get married to the first, second, and not even the third lady that I thought was the right partner for me. Yes, I had over 3 relationships with people I thought initially were the right partner. But the relationship did not lead to marriage. Now, while in those relationships, I ensured that I did my best and maintained the decorum expected of a gentleman. While the relationships didn't work out as anticipated, there were valuable lessons that I learned, and they contributed to helping me find the right partner. This is why some people marry wrongly, because they have been in a relationship with someone they thought was the right person. The relationship period allows you to study and find out if the person fits into what you wrote in the previous chapter. But some individuals, due to an inferiority complex or one form of emotional blackmail, end up settling for what they know is not what they wanted. Let me say at this point that while I encourage everyone to keep their relationship pure and never fall into the temptation of premarital sex, making a mistake of premarital sex should never be a reason for you to settle for marriage with a person when you know that it is not what you have desired in marriage. You have had it said repeatedly that a broken relationship is better than a broken marriage. Take it from me, that statement is true. If you can find anyone who has been through divorce, they will tell you that if they had left the relationship, it would have been far better for them. It would help if you also understood that it is a rare privilege to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't fit into your ideal partner, because they will help prepare you for the ideal one. But many people make the mistake of settling for it because they feel that's all they can find. Another reason why people marry wrongly is that they think age is not in their favor. While I don't support staying till old age and waiting for the right partner, you must understand that our ability to attract the right partner is in our control. And I will be dwelling on that in the next chapter. The truth is that I have seen a lady who got married when she was over 40 years old and was not happy in the marriage. She complains that she was deceived by the man. But I don't believe that. She only got into the marriage because she thought the time was no longer on her side. This also relates to people who marry because of peer pressure. Many go into marriage with any kind of person just because all their friends were getting married. Some others get married because of pressure from family members. While marriage may be something to be celebrated, it is not an achievement. So, if you must get married, please settle down, count the cost, and be sure you are marrying your soulmate. Chapter 3: How the right partner is attracted. I read a story recently from The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill that corroborated the efficacy and validity of this fact. He said, "I once knew a very poor girl who had a burning desire for a wealthy husband, and she finally got him, but not without having transformed that desire into the development of a very attractive personality, which in turn attracted the desired husband." I would be delighted if you could do me the favor of reading that story at least 2 more times. Please look at that critically. First, the lady was poor, yet she desired a wealthy partner. This should teach you that your current situation or circumstances should not be used as the basis for which you write down or desire the kind of partner that you want. She did not say that because she is poor and from a poor background, she would just want to go for an average man. At least, that will be a shift away from where she is coming from. Instead, she went for someone wealthy. So, go back to your desire for the right partner and change it if you think it is too small from what you know now. When I had a desire for my ideal partner, I started by making it a request to God because I thought that such a person was in God's possession. And if He didn't give her to me, I wouldn't be able to get her. But I was surprised at the response I got from God after praying. At that tender age, God told me that it was straightforward for me to get married to such a lady if that's what I wanted. And I said, "Lord, that's what I truly wanted." God's response to me was that if you can make yourself the type of a man that every lady wishes they got married to, you will naturally attract that kind of lady. This came to me both as a shock and a challenge. So I thought about it for some days and decided to take the challenge before God. Knowing that I was not going to get married by age 20, I knew I had some time in my favor to get into the preparation. A story was shared of a lady who invited her friend to her solo concert. This lady played on the piano, and the audience was amazed at the level of mastery she commanded and how well she played the piano. At the end of her performance, the audience was all up for a long time with applause. Her friend, whom she invited, was overwhelmed with tears of amazement, and she instantly fell in love with playing the piano. Then she walked up to her friend at the end and requested to know what it would take her to play the piano like she did today, and that she was ready to do anything to play the piano like her. First, she told her that she should not consider it because she wouldn't be able to play the piano like her. But she insisted. And finally, the pianist told her that what she and every other person needs, not just to play the piano like she did, but also to achieve anything they desire in life, was the necessary time and the sustained commitment. And unfortunately, many cannot afford that, even when they know it is right there at their disposal for free. Getting a life partner of your choice is not as difficult as we have been made to believe. The challenge I see here is that many need to learn that there is a law that governs everything we do on this planet, and getting a life partner is not an exception. People are quick to mysticize what they need help understanding its operation, and that leads to trial and error. And no one has been bold to give a guide that anyone can follow to achieve the same result. And that's exactly what I attempt to do with this book. Let's remember that at some point in the past, when the law of gravity was not known, people saw it as a strange thing. But now that we all know about it, it is no longer a big deal. And even when we do not know where exactly the force is located, we believe that it exists. And whether you believe it or not, you are affected by it. Going back to the last part of the story I shared at the beginning of this chapter, you would have noted that the lady did not just attract the wealthy man for a husband until that desire was transformed into her developing an attractive personality. The secret, therefore, in attracting the right marriage partner is for you to become the right partner yourself. Life is like a mirror, and it only reflects who we are, not necessarily what we want. This is where many people need to catch it. You see many people with bogus desires and wishes, and they go as far as not just writing them down. They also pray about them. But until you understand that most things in life don't come to us until we are worthy of the things. While dreaming is not a bad idea, if only dreaming was what Joseph in the Bible did, his dream wouldn't have seen the light of day. Like I said before, most times the relationships that we first get into, that we eventually discover not to be the right partner for us in marriage, are the opportunities that life brings our ways to help us become the right person, to be able to attract the right partner. Any desire that leaves you the way you were when you had the desire will never get you what you truly desire. You must be ready to give what it takes to become the right partner, to attract the right marriage partner. God is too just to allow good people to marry wrongly. Do not join the people who believe in such. Now that you know that life is more than what we can see with our physical eyes, you have the opportunity to use this knowledge to your advantage or to help someone. Your desire must first transform you from who you are to the person worthy of that desire. It is very cheap to have a desire, but paying the price and giving it the necessary time and sustained commitment is the limitation of many people. Now that you know the secret, how do you apply it to your life? Because the benefit of knowledge is in its application. Knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing, as my mentor Peter Sage always say. So let's move to the next chapter, where I will be sharing with you what I did about my desire to marry a woman to who every other man wish they got married to, and how you can apply it as a guide to getting your right marriage partner. Chapter 4, what to do to attract the right partner. It's frustrating to wake up from a dream without being ready to allow it to keep you from slipping back, if that's what it will take for the dream to be realized. It is wrong for you to have a desire whose responsibility you are unwilling to accept. This is the reason for so many unfulfilled dreams, desires, and goals, not just in marriage, but in all areas of life. As soon as I accepted the responsibility to become the kind of person that every lady would like to get married to as a challenge, I started asking myself several questions, like, what does such a man look like? What do I need to do to become that kind of person? To answer some of these questions, I had to start looking at myself from the eyes of ladies, because it is only a lady that knows what such a man looks like. You will be surprised by the first thing I found out. I discovered that such a man should never beat or fight with his wife. It sounds funny, right? It is not. Ask any lady, even the one whose hobby is wrestling. You demean yourself as a man if you only show a lady your masculinity through physical abuse. Now, it may look like I will be talking about men because I am sharing my personal story with you. But within what I am saying, you will see that the exact instructions will apply to a lady too. For example, a lady who every man would wish to marry should not be found talking down on any man. You know, a woman's mouth is to a woman like what physical strength is to a man. Let's get practical. I didn't want to assume I already had that quality just because I knew it. I had to allow myself to train myself. So, what I did was to make a decision never to lay my hands on my younger sisters, no matter what they did. This is because not being a woman beater is not a function of whether the woman does what is wrong or not. It is a decision you make irrespective of what the woman will do. Now, I need you to know that I had the right to discipline my younger sisters, even when I had to do it with punishment because they were younger. But in my eyes, I started seeing them as ladies, as though they were my wife. But listen, my decision was not about them, but about making myself the kind of man. So, no matter what they did from the time I made that decision to date, I never again laid my hands on any lady. And 5 years in marriage, I have not been found laying hands on my wife. If I had not developed myself with that opportunity with my sisters, I would have prayed all year for that kind of woman and never got her. The next thing I set out to do was to learn about marriage. So I went in search of materials on marriage. I got many CDs, messages of the late Bimbo Odukoya of blessed memory. I listened to those CDs severally. I also got some of her books and other books by other authors, like The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman and Things I Wish I Knew Before I Got Married by the same author. I also read Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren because I realized that such a woman must be purpose driven. I read Why You Act the Way You Do by Tim LaHaye, The Purpose and Power of a Man, The Purpose and Power of a Woman, both by Dr. Miles Moron, and many other books I can't mention here. These books helped me understand myself and how people behave generally. I gradually began to realize that I was acting and behaving differently from most people. The transformation began gradually. Another step I took was to look for couples who already had something similar to what I saw for myself in the future. This is one of the things that taught me in life that anything you are yet to see is what you are not looking for. Nature has a way of responding to what your mind is searching for. For example, you will notice that the moment you decide to buy a particular make of car, as you drive around, many of such vehicles will become more evident to you. By this time, I was already in the university, and some of my flatmates will recall that I kept talking about having advanced couples as my mentors. I eventually got 2 couples that I became very close with. So I had the opportunity to ask them questions and to learn from their lives. There were times I spent some days with them to see what their evenings and mornings looked like. I got very close to them, having access to their bedroom, just like their biological children. It was a time of learning and mentorship. I saw them as my physical guide and examples to look up to. And for most of my relationship decisions, I had to pass them through to them for their counsel. This was very useful and helpful to me, especially when I had to break up a relationship or go through the hurts of breakups. Yes, you need to know that in some of the relationship I went into before I eventually found my wife, I initiated a breakup and the ladies initiated others. There is nothing wrong in breaking up a relationship when you are convinced the person is not the right person for you or you are not the right partner for the person. One thing I have enjoyed is the friendship that still exists between I and them. I remember that one of the ladies I broke up with was the person I asked my wife to call to find out about me when we were dating. You must understand that life is too short to harbor hurts against anybody, irrespective of how the relationship ended. Even if you feel you were used and dumped, it is still not enough reason to keep grudges. However, I must sound a warning here that you must be very careful how you relate with your ex, because emotional infidelity hinders you from bonding well with your partner. You must learn to set boundaries and remain within them. Another thing I did that I will tell you is the fact that I also learned how, where, and when I eat before I got married. First, I didn't want the saying, a man's belly is the road to his heart, to be true to me. I wanted to be a man who could withstand such enticement in case it became an object of manipulation. I also knew that ladies do not appreciate a man who will eat out and come home to reject his wife's homemade food. So I stopped eating outside and only ate food cooked at home, because I knew that ladies are always unhappy when they cook and their husband cannot eat well because they had eaten outside before coming home. If I had to eat out, it should be for fun and not a regular occurrence. This habit was tough for me because of the demands of my academics back then in medical school and the fact that I was very involved in leadership activities. However, it significantly improved my culinary skills as I had to fix meal by myself. It was indeed a hard one, but because it was a requirement, as it were, for the desire of my heart, I had to do it. To date, I still don't eat out, and my wife also loves eating food I make myself. So sometimes I help out in the kitchen by making the meals, and she loves it. Another thing that I did that played a massive part in this process was to commit myself to fasting and praying once every week, strictly for my marriage and my future partner. While I may not recommend to you to do the same, I can tell you that one of the things this did to me was to help me have a consciousness of marriage at least once every week. And to date, 5 years into marriage, I still have one day in a week dedicated as my family day. This may not be 100% regular, but it is like a status that is always remembered. I would like you to know that most times what we do in marriage are the things we learned before we got married. The idea of saying that when I get married, I will do this or that does not exist, because anything you are unable to prepare for before you get married, you may not be able to do in marriage. In other words, we take who we are into marriage. I will talk more about this in the last chapter. Now that you know that it takes you to become the right person to attract the right partner, all it requires from you is the necessary time and sustained commitment. Sustained commitment not in waiting for the right partner, but in transforming yourself to becoming the right partner. And when that is done, I can assure you that the right partner will show up. Socrates said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. How long will it take for the right partner to appear? The answer is very simple. He or she will appear as soon as you become the right person. Therefore, the time it will take depends on you, not your partner. It is how long it takes to become the right partner. A student may remain in one level until he or she can pass the examination of that level. In my case, it took me from 19 years to over 30 years old. While that is not a standard time for anyone, the guiding rule is if you grow fast and transform fast, the right partner will be attracted quickly. In the next chapter, I will share how we eventually met. Chapter 5, How I Met Her. I blessed the day I set my eyes on her because she was indeed the woman of my dream. Now, I want you to know that what I have shared with you in the previous chapters is an irrefutable law that has no respect for distance. It does not consider whether or not you have known each other for long. Let me say this upfront. My wife graduated from the University of Jos, where I spent the first 3 years of my undergraduate before we were transferred to Mboin State University, where I eventually graduated. But my wife didn't meet me in Jos. I had left Jos before she gained admission. And also, my wife is from the northern part of Nigeria, while I am from the southern part of Nigeria. So, we didn't have a regional advantage also. I can tell you without a doubt that even if the right partner is in a different country from you, when you become the right person, this law is strong enough to attract them to you wherever in the world. In 2014, I returned to Jos after my National Youth Service Corps in 2013, and I was squatting with a good friend of mine. One evening, he returned home and informed me that one of our friends who was a student at the University of Jos was sick and that we needed to visit her. So, instead of seeing her that evening, we decided to visit her the following day. When we got to her hostel off campus, we realized that her condition was severe. My friend and I started contemplating what to do. We both had work to attend to, so we didn't have the time to stay with her on admission here in Jos, nor could we travel with her to Abuja, where her parents reside. While we were still thinking of what to do, two ladies walked into the room to pray with her. One was her neighbor, and the other was a friend of her neighbor who had come to visit her friend the previous night. She said her friend had told her about our friend who was sick, and she was supposed to come to pray with her last night. But she was too tired and said they would come in the morning. Steve Jobs said, "We cannot connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect the dots looking backward." My wife today is the person who came to visit her friend, who was the neighbor to the person who was sick. Do you see the law of attraction at work? If my friend and I had come that very night, we would have missed her. And if she had come that night, she would have also missed us. Let me say this quickly. The same reason why we couldn't go there that evening was the exact reason why they didn't go to pray for her that evening. And if they had decided to see her that evening, we would have also been convinced to go there that same evening. So, my dear friend, if you do what I have shared in this book, nothing can stop you from attracting the right partner without respect for distance. Back to the story. While my friend and I were still thinking of what to do, we concluded that we needed to take her to Abuja, but needed to figure out the right person to accompany her. One of her friends who could have gone was wasting too much time that we all didn't have. So I told my friend that I would approach these two ladies who came to pray with her to see if we could get a car to go to Abuja with them. Before we spoke with them, my instinct had already started giving signals. And I told myself that if these ladies we didn't know agreed to go with her, I would know that what I was sensing was real. So we approached them and they decided to go. But my attention was more on the lady who came to visit her friend. So we collected their numbers, my friends. That was the situation that brought us to cross path. A few days after that day, when they had returned from Abuja, I told her I was coming to see her in the hostel. So I went to see her and immediately told her I would like us to get into a relationship. She said no, because she was in a very serious relationship and was very satisfied and comfortable with it. Surprisingly, few weeks from that day, I got a job in Abuja and left Jos. Interestingly, The day I left Jos was the day she blocked my line from calling her because she didn't want any distractions. My wife is very loyal and sincere. It will surprise you that the next time I will have the opportunity to speak to her was in late 2016. And on 25th of November 2017, we were both married. And 5 years counting now in marriage, I make bold to say that she was that lady that every man would wish they got married to, that I had has a desire for over a decade, because more than 10 men had desired at one point to marry her. Chapter 6. Now that you are married. This is a bonus to the issues we have discussed so far in the previous chapters. First, we now understand what it takes to attract the right partner for marriage, and that is by becoming the person who is worthy of that desire. We can do this by working on ourselves and allowing growth and transformation to happen to us. But attracting the right marriage partner is not a guarantee for a successful married life. That you saw the person in your vision confirmed by a prophet or any of such is not a guarantee that the marriage will be successful. I would like to share a story with you that I came across in the devotional I and my wife use every morning. It reads, April 4, 1984, two Christians, a 20-year-old young girl and a 22-year-old young boy, decided to elope and do what a man and a woman should. This journey of what we thought would be a blissful dream turned into a quick, blundering nightmare. It was nothing like the fairy tales I grew up watching. However, it did look like what I grew up with within my family. My husband came from a Christian home where he never saw his parents disagree or fuse. On the other hand, I came up in a fusing and fighting environment. Now, just because my husband didn't see disagreements doesn't mean it was perfect. He saw his mom as quiet and subservient to his dad. Well, bring that all together in your mind. And what do you see? I will answer, a mess. We all are the product of the environment we have come out of. And that is not exclusive, just your home environment. There are school environments, workplace environments, social clubs, and let's not forget, church environments that have helped to shape who we are today. Due to our differences and stubbornness, Mike and I had trouble on our hands for the first 7 to 8 years of our marriage. He did not like me, and I did not like him. I am the baby girl out of 7, and he is the baby boy out of 6. I was very independent and stubborn. He was mean with a strong personality, but we wanted our marriage. The first thing you must do to make your marriage successful is for both of you to make a decision to make it successful. That's why in the process of attracting the right person, one of the things to look out for is the alignment of values that concerns marriage. You cannot marry someone who doesn't have good family values and expect to have a successful marriage. Some of the things that my wife and I do is eat and pray together almost daily. This way, we are strengthening our bond. We also set out one day in a week dedicated to focusing on our relationship through prayers, fasting, communication, etc. This book may not cover the details of what is required to sustain a marriage and live happily together, but understand that if it took work, necessary time, and sustained commitment to attract the right partner, it will take even more to sustain an enviable relationship in marriage that you both will be proud to give as a legacy to your children and the next generation. One of my goals as I got married was to model the right kind of man, not just for my wife, but also for my children, especially my daughters. I looked forward to having my wife pray to God to give our daughters husbands like their fathers. In 5 years, that goal has been achieved, and I'm committed to raising the standard. I recently had my wife praying in amazement for something I did. In my mind, I said to myself, "Great, keep it up and don't relent." My wife is God's gift to me and a sign of how much God loves me. Friends, these instructions and stories will also guide you in your journey to attracting the right partner for marriage. I look forward to hearing from you. Path the author, Osas-Daniel, is an obsessive follower of Jesus Christ and a superb and talented instructor of sound biblical principles for the growth of both individuals and organizational leadership. He is popularly called the Mind Master. He is the founder of Osas-Daniel Mind Mastery Institute, an institute that is saddled with a singular vision of helping individuals to discover the potential power of the mind and then teaching them the habits that helps them maximize it so they can live successfully and fulfill God's purpose for their lives. Osas-Daniel is a strong leader with extensive experience in both secular and religious settings. On demand, he also participates in itinerary speaking engagement. He is capable of demystifying complex subjects to their most basic form for simple comprehension, thanks to his straightforward and passionate teaching style. Osas-Daniel has a PhD in education and is currently employed as a senior lecturer at the Federal College of Medical Laboratory Science in Jos. He is a medical laboratory science by profession and holds an MSc in hematology and blood transfusion science. He is also a fellow of the West African Postgraduate College of Medical Lab Science. His life's work is to help people realize their mental potential so they can overcome any kind of obstacles and make living well a habit. He belongs to the Peter Sage Academics Elite Mentorship Forum. He lives in Jos, Plateau State, with his lovely wife, Zenom, and their two lovely daughters, Nosagwe and Enweogosa.